final part of assessment criteria 1.2, where we're looking at different forms of ownership for retail businesses. This one is called not-for-profit. So we're looking at the learning intention to understand and describe the different forms of ownership for retail. So as we build through the steps, this is about knowing what not-for-profit organisations are, and they are actually more than just charities. Next, we want to then build on the skills, which is about being able to explain the difference between the three types of not-for-profit organisations and looking at the advantages and disadvantages of the ownership type. So the key word is obviously what these three are: a charity, social enterprise and a voluntary organisation. And some of the jobs in the bottom yellow box are actually directly related to what these not-for-profit organisations have to do in terms of running events. Here's your task list for lesson 5. There are 7 items. The first few are quite easy peasy, some finding skills. So you need to find 3 not-for-profit logos, and I want you to, on task 2, to focus on social enterprises. Then we're looking at making sure you've got a volunteering not-for-profit organisation. We need to look at those who have a physical and an online presence. Then we're doing some charity work. I'm looking at the top 10, and on task 6 there's a local list that you've got to examine, and lastly on task 7 it is an Oxfam comparison to finish. Well, here we go. What is a not-for-profit? A not-for-profit organisation is a type of organisation that does not earn profits for its owners. All of the money earned by or donated to a not-for-profit organisation is used in pursuing the organisation's objectives. For example, charity shops, voluntary organisations and social enterprises. They often exist to promote a cause. What better way to find out what's what in these 3 types of not-for-profits by going logo shopping? Find a local example of each type of these not-for-profits. A charity shop, B, a voluntary organisation, and C, a social enterprise. And newsflash, they all need to be 3 different organisations. Let's see how you crack the social enterprise. So what is one? Social enterprises are formed to provide help within a society. They may provide general support, for example consumer rights and worker enterprises, or deal with specific issues. A social enterprise may also be established in an attempt to raise awareness of or provide a solution to society's problems, such as crime and drug abuse. So let's really make sure you've nailed what a social enterprise is. The clue is in the last bit. Put in your second example in task 2. Did you know this about charities? Charities are organisations that aim to raise money in order to support a cause, such as cancer research or wiping out poverty in the third world countries. I'm sure you're okay with that. Charities will focus on minimising their costs, and they organise activities to maximise their donations. Can you think of a major charitable event that happens around November time that involves children? Many charities employ paid workers to undertake specialist work, but also rely on volunteers in order to minimise wage costs. So when you've got a charity as big as, say, that one that goes something to do with a teddy bear in November, then that's huge. With all the money that gets donated, they need to be able to set up the projects. They need to then actually allocate the donations into these projects, and they need to then report on how well the projects have performed. So those type of jobs are all the paid workers. And when it comes to setting up particular promotional material like silly ears and silly nose and silly headbands and stuff, then you've also got paid workers, because these people are setting up the campaign for it. These are the actual business functions, whereas the volunteers, you tend to find them more so in places like the actual shops. Many charities have physical stores and an online presence to sell products to help them raise money. Charities will often receive donations from for-profit businesses as well. particularly when you think of these big TV charitable events. Have a think about these massive presentation checks that they go, here you go, there's a couple of 100,000 from such and such a company for that charity. That teddy bear charity is a good example. So try and see if you can find examples like that. So let's add a little bit more skills and knowledge to these charities. Task 3A, where can you volunteer for a charity? Let's make that a local answer, please. Task B, which charities have a physical and online presence? And C, find a for-profit organisation who have donated and to which charity. Now, I've given you some massive clues. See what you can do. Charities are set up to support a number of different causes. Most charities that have an income of more than £5,000 must register with the Charity Commission for England and Wales. Charities can receive tax relief and exemptions. They don't pay a tax on their profits the same way a private business will. Quick question for you. What type of liability do these charities have? It will tell you in the company name, so you might go and have a look. Put your answer in the red box below. And the answer is there. It's a limited liability or unlimited liability. So that's all you've got to find out. And you don't even have to write it. Just circle the right answer. Let's test your knowledge in terms of how many charities we can find. So task 4, I'd like you to find the name of a charity covering these 12 topics. So you need to do a little bit of secondary research, which is you do some internet research. So you might want to put in prevention or relief of poverty, or you know what, prevention charity. Prevention of what though? It's prevention of poverty. Prevention of poverty charity, relief of poverty charity. Lob them in Google and see what answers you can come up with. Next one, the advancement of human rights. Put the word charity on the end and see what you can find, and so on. You fill in the column on the right. This is where you're going to use your searching from the last task in task 4, where you're looking up which charities are which based on the search criteria. And let's see if you can actually find which ones that you found are in the top 10 in terms of how much income they've raised. So when you have got, so if you came up with, say, Cancer Research UK, then pick one of the blue ticks from the shopping basket and put that next to Cancer Research UK, and so forth. You might not have that one because it depends on whether that was the criteria. Task 6, the local list. This is where you're going to find specifically local charities that have physical stores in your area. So you need to fill in the 5 blue boxes and they have to be local. That's part of task 6A. 6B, for one of these charities, that's one of the boxes, list the products they sell and put your list in the scroll. And in task 6C, explain why consumers would buy from a charity shop. You might want to pick this specific charity shop or just charity shops in general. Whichever way you think is easier, but it's about why people go and shop there. Here's your final task, task 7, the Oxfam comparison. Visit the Oxfam online shop using this link in blue. Describe how the online shop for Oxfam differs from a for-profit retail organisation. So this is where you are comparing Oxfam, the one we're doing now in this lesson, to the for-profit organisations that we've been doing in the last 4 lessons. And then this is where we're going to do a compare paragraph. I want you to compare 2 advantages and disadvantages of a not-for-profit with a for-profit organisation. So you can go back to your notes from last lesson. You can pick up the cooperative notes on the 2 good and 2 bad points, or go back to limited companies, whichever one you want. And you need to think about the 2 good points and bad points of a charity. Now there's things like keeping the cost down. They've got volunteers for staff, donations. There are lots of people supporting because of the cause. All these things are good points. So write a few lines at the top which are your notes, so that you know you've got the not-for-profit good points and bad points. And then this is the final task, so this is where we're going to put the pen paragraph in action again. So you need to start off with some describes, then explains, and then you're working your way up to analyse, which is using because, and then evaluate, where we're getting in those extended connectives, things like on the other hand, however, it can be seen that, all these words, or all those connectives. The end of lesson 5. You have completed all those 7 tasks and you have completed learning objective 1.2, retail ownership types. Woohoo, well done.